Kermit Whitfield, member of the CMC Board of Trustees and Director of Communications for United Way of Central Ohio. It's great to see everyone here today. Today's forum, we celebrate CMC's 40th celebration, Best of Columbus, housing trends that will define us, with support from honorary founders Dispatch Media Group, American Electric Power, and WBNS 10 TV. Please help us thank our honorary founders and their representatives here today for their ongoing support. From the tightly knit neighborhoods of the simple frame houses of the 40s and 50s to modern suburbs and urban infill, our homes define our landscape and our lifestyles. We have been hearing a lot lately about downsizing, walkable communities, energy efficiency, sustainability, and density. We seem to be in the midst of a significant change in the way we look at the places where we live. And that has massive ramifications in both private and public investment. Today, we explore what these trends mean for the people who build the homes we live in. Please welcome our expert panel, Executive Director of the Building Industry Association of Central Ohio, Jim Hills, the Columbus Area President of MI Homes, Tim Hall, President of Wagenbrenner Development Corporation, Mark Wagenbrenner, and our moderator, real estate reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Jim Weicker. Jim, the podium's yours.
Thank you, Kermit. Let me start with a little context. By almost any measure, Central Ohio housing is as healthy now as it's ever been. More homes changed hands last year than ever before. They sold at higher prices. They were on the market for fewer days than ever before. The market, in many ways, is booming. Foreclosures are way down. Delinquencies are down. Apartments are going up seemingly on every corner. Any way you look at it, the demand for housing is robust right now in Central Ohio. Job growth is up, employment's up, household formation is up. These are key indicators of the market. They're all strong. In short, over the last 2 to 3 years, the Central Ohio housing market has recovered almost all the gains and then some that were lost during the Great Recession. The story is a little different, though, when it comes to new homes. Last year, about 3,000 permits, I think, Jim, were released or issued in Central Ohio for new homes. That's about the same number as the year before and the year before that. New home construction is about a third of what it was during the housing boom. It's been very slow to recover, despite an unusually low number of homes on the market. On the existing home side, there is very little inventory. By most ways of looking at things, this should be boom times for your industry for new homes. Jim, I'll start with you. You were at a meeting yesterday at the annual forecast meeting when a national economist said that home construction here in Central Ohio should be twice what it is right now. Do you agree with that? And if so, what do you think is keeping the new home building industry from gaining ground and recovering more quickly?
Well, I think first and foremost, it probably starts with the price points where we're at in terms of where we are with single-family construction. Last year, the average price of a single-family home in Central Ohio is $319,000. That's up 5% from the year before. For condominium, the average price is $259,000, which is up 17%. Just specifically, if you look at the northern part of our market, which is Delaware County, into the east and west, the average price is close to $400,000. And as a specific example with condominiums, and this is a small sample, but the average price for 2015 in Union County for a condominium was $442,000. Now there's something impacting that, but I don't know what it is. But that's the biggest part of it. We're trying to compete with a market where the average price of an existing home is $192,000.
What is driving the prices? And I'll open it up to anyone. What's making homes that expensive right now?
Well, I'll say that a lot of it starts at land use, and we had a long situation through the go-go days where we were developing communities that were able to meet different statures of buyers, and when you were opening with your remarks, Jim, I mean, that's where my head was going. I mean, I will tell you as a leading builder in this marketplace that times are really quite good for us right now in Columbus. And we're elated to be here, and we're super committed to the marketplace. The fact of the matter is, though, is that certainly when we get communities open, the level of demand for our homes is plenty, but it takes a while to bring these things online. And to Jim's point, I think that we as an industry here in Central Ohio do need to continue to evaluate, what opportunities do we have to bring great housing online, and on a basis that makes sense for everybody, consumer included, of course, at that $250,000 average selling price sort of range. To Jim's point, our numbers are frankly even more dramatic than the general marketplace. I mean, our average selling price is exceeded over $100,000 in just a few short years. And it's not because we're getting more from the customer in terms of profit on the home. It's because of the average stature of the homes that we're delivering.
Is there any way realistically of bringing down that price that you see right now without sacrificing what buyers want?
Well, our focus is primarily in the urban area, and I'd echo a lot of what Tim said. There's growing demand, and literally it's the challenges we face just getting the supply up, and we really feel the pinch. It's never been harder to build anything than it is today with the shortage in labor, and and a lot of the stuff that we're looking at, quite frankly, hasn't been built in this market. So we have a great city, and the building department's trying, but a lot of the product that we're introducing really challenges existing codes, and so that slows everything down. And so now as demand's starting to build, unfortunately land costs just keep going up and up. So we are challenged. I mean, when we look downstream, we love what we feel now, but we do get concerned long term about the products getting so expensive, relatively speaking, to previous to the recession. Are we going to be able to sustain long term the demands? Because I can tell you, I mean, most of the product that you're seeing coming online in the urban area is climbing to $300 a foot and beyond, and so that's a real challenge for a lot of folks. And the only way you get there is you really got to think about your design. You got to bring down the size of the structures and offer amenities and really well thought out formats to offset those square footage costs.
Mark, you talked about location. You've been in the forefront of building in urban settings, Wineland Park, Italian Village, of course, Grandview Yard, Harrison West. Who's buying these homes?
Well, we sold, we got going there before the recession, and it was predominantly, we'd call them hipsters or millennials, and it's quite funny. A couple gets together and she's making more than he is, and they buy a house, and then they have kids 3 or 4 years later, and then they're off to school systems, and that trend we see now, but we're seeing a lot more empty nesters looking at the market. And from a lifestyle standpoint, the walkability factor we've all talked about, I mean, it's appealing to the 2 deepest legs demographically that we have. Both those sets want similar quality. So we really see, and we're really trying to design a product that is a lot more appealing to baby boomers. But I would still say predominantly, 60-65% of our buyers are still traditional, empty nest or millennials. I'd say 32 years old to 35, sometimes into the 20s. But lifestyle-wise, a mix of lifestyles, really quite a lot of diversity, much more than you would typically see during suburban development times.
are you finding, as you mentioned, that when these 20-year-olds have kids, you know, they hightail it out to Powell and Dublin?
Not, you know, sometimes, I mean, you know, they're having kids later and they're having fewer kids. I would say what we've been surprised about is how quickly you know, they probably have time to remain in an urban type setting, but yet we do see them moving out. And, you know, actually, you know, we see just as many move into the old suburb, you know, the downtown Worthington area, where you can walk to that strip, you know, Arlington, you know, so Bexley, you know, I would say, and obviously Grandview. I mean, so a lot of those folks, we believe, once they have that urban experience, are going to want to move to those school systems. But the closer they stay to the core, probably the better. And most of those, not all of them, but not to say that, you know, Dublin is still all the suburbs, you know, like Westerville, New Albany. So it's a mix, but. You know, the walkability factor, I would say if you pulled them leaving, that would be the biggest thing, the biggest miss, is if they could find a way to be in walkable communities.
And Wags, you hit it. I mean, and it creates an interesting dynamic for us, who traditionally anyways has been primarily a suburban builder. You know, Wags and a number of others in this town do a very good job of catering to that millennial right now, and frankly, there's a lot of fit and finish in the apartments that they're renting, and when they do pick up and leave, if they should desire to do so, you know, it creates a lot of interesting thoughts in our head in terms of how can we best serve that customer who is certainly coming to us for various reasons, but certainly resided in their 20s in an urban core setting for a reason, and they aren't going to let all that go. So it's kind of fun. I mean, Wags hit it on the head. I mean, really, there's no great secret, I don't think, in terms of what our not too distant future looks like and what our greatest opportunities are. I mean, it really gets down to household formation, and for a business in the business of for sale housing, what percentage of that household formation are actually homeowners. And we really we split our demographics really into three main buckets. Most of you have already heard them. You know, you have these Gen Y millennial buyers who are primarily in their 20s right now. I think, I don't know, it starts at 15 and I think the cap is kind of like high 30s. And then you have the Gen X group that gets you to about 55 or so, and then you have the boomers after that. Our greatest opportunities is for these millennials, as Wags already said. I mean, you know, they're later to the game in terms of getting married and having kids. The other interesting dynamic that didn't apply 20 years ago even, or 15 years ago for that matter, is the fact that many of them are saddled with student debt to a great degree that they weren't before. But nonetheless, they're you know, so they're maturing through the process a little bit later than maybe people in my generation did, but they're coming. And then the other big bucket is the aging of our population. The empty nester set, as we look at them, you know, the stats are just staggering. How many 70-plus-year-old homeowners there are going to be in this market and other major markets across the country in 15 years as opposed to now, and frankly, 15 years ago. So those are our opportunities.
Or Mark or Jim, what product should we expect to see for those people? You know, I think of the empty nester, patio home, you know, maybe a downtown condo. Do you have any sense of what we're going to see a lot of to accommodate all the retiring baby boomers who are tired of their 4,000 square foot homes in the burbs?
Well, I can tell you what we hope we see a lot of, and that's a product that's a town, you know, and we're developing this now, and we're just bringing it online. But boy, as developers, we all, you know, learned a real hard lesson in the last recession, and you know, the world changes so fast now. You know, God forbid we ever have a 9/11, but shocks can come out of areas you never see coming. So you translate that into business practices as it relates to housing. You know, those big, large condo buildings that are flat and have the units that are probably historically most set up for an aging population are incredibly risky because, essentially you're 95% all in to every unit the day you sell the first unit. So, you build a 60-unit mid-rise building and it's a 2-year delivery. A lot of bad things can happen in 2 years, and you get caught in a really wicked storm. We want to stay close to the ground. We have a townhouse unit now that's it varies in size, but what we've really seen is the ability to add residential elevators into individual structures. And our coastal communities have, ever since hurricane codes got really enforced in the last 15 or 20 years, most coastal communities have really been forced to use elevators, and oftentimes they're in the more luxurious homes, but because of codes and they have to have blow-through first floors, they've forced everything up. So the quality of the residential elevators has really gone up, the number of suppliers, and the cost has really come down. So we see a unit that would be very attractive to a senior that would be a 3-story townhouse unit with a garage that goes from the first floor to probably where the garage is up through the kitchen, all the way up to a roof deck. And in most urban markets or in most cities, roof decks are really attractive for not only for restaurants but for homes. So if you're going to do without your outdoor space, if we can move that outdoor space to the roof, get you elevator access, fire pits, outdoor kitchens, TVs. When you're 60 years old or 65 years old and contemplating your next move in life, it's a pretty fun place to contemplate it, sitting on a roof deck with a fire pit and watching the lights go down. So we hope, we think that's going to have a lot of legs. It's been a real challenge to get the product. It's taken us probably over a year to get through a lot of the code issues, but we're really excited, and we think it's a product that'll really sell well.
Tim, MI has done a lot of consumer research. Let me ask you to dovetail on what Mark was talking about. What amenities do buyers have to have now? And what do you see moving forward that maybe you're just experimenting now or you're just starting to see in homes that might become more popular?
Yeah, I mean, again, I go back to sort of what is the profile of your buyer. Wags hit it on the empty nesters. It's there's a social connection element, and accessibility issues, and affordability. We started with affordability. We got to keep reminding ourselves that I mean, there's a great deal of this of these buyers are looking to simplify their lives, and part of simplification in life is kind of condensing your nut as it relates to the home, to your home. And so that it's an interesting buyer because they want to scale down, but yet they need to want the room for all their stuff, and believe me, they know what they want, and as they should. I mean, this is they've been through it before. And then we have a core set, of course, of family buyers who still are motivated by schools. We're extremely blessed in Central Ohio by the quality of our suburban school districts. As a guy that used to run our Central Florida operation and was in one of the finer suburbs of Orlando, and I was just horrified on the first day of orientation of the public school, and quite frankly ponied up to put my kid in private down there. We're very blessed with the quality of our suburban school districts here, and that will continue to be a draw for our family buyers. The millennial set, it's first of all, they're just frankly becoming buyers, and so we've got a lot to learn. But Wags hit on a lot of the good stuff. It's exciting times because it's not right down the lane like it used to be in a lot of respects. A lot of out of the box thinking is what's going to prevail. Consumers will demand it, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
There are a lot of buzzwords in the industry about features that people want or maybe they'll want in the future. Let me ask you to comment, any of you, on a couple of things. Smart homes, you hear a lot about technology-driven homes and also green homes. Are Are these just buzzwords, or are you actually seeing these things play out in the real world, and if so, how?
We work really hard and promote from a sales perspective the energy efficiency associated with our homes. Certainly our consumers demand it in today's world, and quite frankly, it also appeals to the greed and the simplification element too, because the cost of ownership is so low. Yeah, important. You know, a lot of the other stuff won't come as a surprise. Great rooms, large showers, baths, bathtubs are things sort of the past I think we're seeing right now. Super pantries, things that none of which there's not like a silver bullet out there, I don't think, but certainly the consumer has evolved to a point now where those things are expected.
I'd say I echo a lot of what Tim said, and I'd say on the technology side, it's incredible, now that it's so easy to create wireless devices, so it's, the ability to turn a house into something you can control miles away from a cell phone. It's a snap. I mean, and it's the point now where, it isn't a big investment up front. I mean, it's always a challenge as a home builder. How much of that do you have to build into the base program? And it drives the cost of the house up, and if somebody doesn't want that option, you've lost a buyer. Now it's so easy to wire, you get a lot of bandwidth and wireless capabilities within your house. And I mean, we've seen window blinds, clearly all your heating and cooling devices, Sonos and the music systems, and all that's driven off wireless devices. And, there's an app for everything, and there's an app for a lot of, bringing all these abilities together, and it's really becoming quite easy to do. So I think you're going to see a lot of that in all forms of housing quite soon.
It changes weekly. And so basically most of our consumers are looking to set themselves up so that they can continue to evolve with the technology and not tear apart their walls. But so much of it, as Wag said, is wireless now that but the consumer, frankly, needs to make a decision on whether or not they want to, check their temperature when they're vacationing in San Francisco. Is that important to you? But certainly, music sources and whatnot are extremely popular.
You talked about the challenge, the cost of preparing land for development, and the expense of doing that even before you start a foundation. Let me ask, Jim, I'll throw this to you. If there was something you could change in government, in codes, in the way municipalities operate,
how much time do we have?
Where would you start?
Geez. I mean, that whole process is why I have a job, so I have to be careful about how I answer that. But I think that we need to have some sense of reality as to, we talk about density, we talk about the walkability, and it's all great as long as it's not built in my community or next to me. And so, that's a big problem that we're dealing with right now. Started Worthington, Powell, now in Hilliard. And, we have, as Jim mentioned earlier, we're not even close to meeting the demand that exists based on the job growth we have. And we are extremely fortunate to be with an economy here that's thriving. Yet there hasn't been, I don't think that either of you have ever gone through a zoning where they've actually asked you to increase the number of homes you're building, but not decrease the number of homes you're building. So at 1 to 1.5 to 2 units an acre, it doesn't work, and we need to pay more attention to what Morpsey's doing with Insight 2050 and really looking at the whole region as a whole in terms of what the housing market looks like and paying attention to the demographics in terms of how we're going to build out Central Ohio and offer a diverse housing product and affordable housing product.
And another thing, in addition to density, is frankly the lot size. Most of our zoning authorities in our world will start with wanting, an 85, 90-foot wide lot, be able to accommodate a big home with 3-car garages and all kinds of all kinds of stuff. And there's this perception that is necessarily better for frankly the community and values for housing stock and all that kind of stuff. And to some of the points we discussed earlier, that's not necessarily how everybody wants to live. And the notion of not necessarily building more homes on the property, but clustering and building smaller lots, smaller product, and creating things that have conservation design and an open passive spaces that can be used for walking and gardening and all kinds of cool stuff. Those are things we need to continue to pay attention to.
What are sort of the holy grails of site selection right now? When you look around, you mentioned Worthington, there's a big property on High Street there, Jim. I mean, that's a walkable property, and they've had struggles getting that land developed. Are you looking for locations like that, and are there many around? Urban, sort of semi-urban settings, or at least walkable settings that could be developed at a price that makes it profitable?
Well, that's always the putt, and I know we both love that Worthington site because we worked on it together. So, there are sites like that out there, but I do think downstream, when you look at areas, take like something like Upper Arlington around Kingsdale, you've got hundreds of old 4-family apartments that are there that they take up so much land, and boy, the ability to go in and, even though it's expensive, but buy those up and then repurpose them and densify them. I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of that in the future. But I think what this all comes down to is we're all going through a tremendous amount of change. I mean, the world, I think everybody expected that after the recession, not everybody, but a lot of people expected things to return to normal. And there's so many things going on demographically that put us in truly, truly a unique situation. So the market's never going to come back like it was. And when you're asking those that have lived in an environment, and change is always difficult, but man, it's just been, the market's driving us to accelerating change and new products. And, and I think in general, it's so easy to, point at the other side of the table. But as developers, I think we got to look and say, gosh, the life of being a plan reviewer right now, or, those folks work hard, and there's so much going on, and they're asked to do so much. How hard it is to start, basically developing a whole new policy around a product. It's just so much easier to fall back in and say, stay within the policy we had before. So I think everybody's got to give everybody a break and say, look, no, we know there's a better way to do this, and we all got to be willing to step back and do our part to find a better path to get there on a more efficient means, because it's not good for anybody, the challenges that we face, if there's not the respect and the, hey, let's keep sight of the big picture. As Tim said, we're blessed. I always got to pinch myself and say, look, I know I drink a lot of the local Kool-Aid, so, I always try to stay as calm, but it's hard not to be incredibly excited about how things are going in our city right now. And, for growing up and having to explain yourself that you're from Columbus, you don't have to do that much anymore. And watching young people, set roots down here, not because they had to, or, oh, I'm in Columbus, it's the way they want to now. And, we had a recent experience where we were attracting a national tenant, the Stone Brewing deal. And to sit there and sit on conference calls and hear national search guys say, no, Columbus is considered, it's more affordable than Chicago, obviously, but literally, it's considered by a lot of the hipsters as being the city in this region to live in behind Chicago. So, these are, phrases coming from somebody that didn't live and, breathe the air and, get buckified, or, it's, so it's good to hear it. I can tell you the university, every place you look, things are pretty positive. And again, I think, we all got to do our part to pick up the pace and offer products that we know our market needs and wants, and hopefully we can, have some fun doing it. And I just can't tell you, having done a little work in other markets, the spirit of cooperation between developers and regulators is so high in Central Ohio compared to most markets. It's really exciting about, thinking about how we can push this forward and dropping the pedal to the metal, as they say.
You're the first developer I've ever heard say that.
Well, but you get a lot more with the carrot than you do with the stick. And
we'll open it up to the questions in a few minutes, but let me ask each of you one final question. As you look over the next 5 or 10 years, what do you see as the most significant change that we should expect in your industry in home building? It could be demographics, product, materials. What do you see as the big thing?
I hope it's not a cop-out, but yes, yes, and yes. I really believe that the dynamics of what the consumer is looking for today in relation to the land availability in Central Ohio, there's going to be a lot of new, cool, and fresh ideas that come about, and it's going to be really, really exciting to be a part of it.
I'll probably get. I'd say a lot of what we've kind of reiterated through this conversation, but I think it's land. I mean, clearly there's a densification, and Tim brings up a great point. I mean, even in suburban development, the idea of allowing more open space and pulling units in. I mean, I think we all realize that, when you build a house on an 80-foot lot that's 200 feet deep, you really destroy a lot of, if you pull those houses in close and leave that open space, and the amount of recreation that people want. Walkability goes beyond just walking city streets. Who doesn't like our metro parks and walking in, and being able to aggregate land and bring it back to reuse for recreational purposes. And so all that, it's entirely different than what we've seen the last 30 years, and I think you're going to see a lot more of it.
I would just say, you listen to Kenny McDonald talk about, from Columbus 2020, talk about what's going on in the region, and we're #1 in job growth and #1 in population growth in the Midwest. We're #8 in the country for population growth from 25 to 34. We have some challenges ahead of us in terms of what the housing market's going to look like, but those numbers you can't help but be excited about those numbers, and we have some bumps in the road here, but I think we will get to where we need to be, because in order for those numbers to stay where they are, we have to fix the housing issue and be able to provide housing to maintain that job growth and keep Columbus where Mark and Tim are talking about. So I think the next 5 or 10 years are going to be very exciting.
Do you think this year, Jim, we'll start seeing those permit numbers and new home sale numbers start to really rise?
I got out of predicting numbers back in 2006, 5 or 6. It took us 7 years to get back to 3,000 permits. That's a good question. I think, at the price points we're still at, I don't see huge growth. Maybe, the national numbers aren't predicting huge growth, but there are some things that are slowing us down, and small builders will tell you if they could build more houses, they couldn't do it right now because of labor issues and that we're dealing with in the construction industry.
Well, with that, let's open it up to questions. The club's tradition is to offer questions. There's a podium there. I've been asked to remind you, no speeches. Please just ask the question briefly and to one of them or all. Go ahead, Ken.
I'm Ken Thompson. I'm an architect. And it seems like every client, I just do strictly houses, every client thinks they can build something for 100 or 150 a square foot. Mark, you mentioned $300 a foot there earlier on. Tim, I'm curious, you have a wide experience that way, where people think M.I. Homes can build something for 100 or 150 foot, and I just would love to know whether that's true. And do you see you guys coming up with a Buckeye model or a Buckify model?
I can tell you, I mean, we've over the course of our 40 years here, we've got a reputation for diversity of product in our settings that's unparalleled. So I really can't answer the question because it sort of varies on the efficiency of the plan and the things that are built into it. You know, we don't waver on building standards. In fact, we put ourselves in a position where we can always sell our building standards against our competition in a very, very strong way. So being the more for more builder, I don't, you know, our costing in terms of sticks and bricks in this marketplace, I'll tell you, in the last couple of years hasn't been getting out of control. You know, it's kind of maybe 4 or 5% increase sort of range. But Jim hit the nail on the head. It's less about costing and more about execution from the labor force, and that continues to be a challenge. On the other hand, on the land side, and this is probably and we've touched on it a little bit earlier, having a greater impact on bottom line costing for our consumers is the land costing. I will tell you, in the last couple of years, we've probably increased on that side of our business a good 20%, and I bet you we're going to have another good 20% this coming year. So that's really where the choker is.
I should have mentioned, please state your name. Thanks.
I have one quick comment. Somebody said a city planner never said you can have more zoning. I think in Dublin, I heard Steve Langworthy say when somebody asked for 20 units, he said, how about 40 at the Bridge Street corridor? So I did hear that comment. My question actually is about the rental market. In cities like LA, Chicago, and New York, a lot of people start off young and rent for the rest of their lives. And we're building a lot of apartments in Columbus. Do you think there's going to be a trend like that in Columbus? And if so, what kind of product do you think that we'd be building?
Yeah, no, I think rental surely is a life choice for many. I mean, in terms of the millennials, I think we all understand. One other point I think you can expect as a millennial to have 3 significant career moves. So there's a lot of good common sense as to why somebody, you know, growing up at today's age wouldn't want to be strapped with owning a house. And so that I think will still, you know, continue to spawn a lot of growth on the rental side. We're leasing right now. We've probably for the last 6 years have opened up a project leasing in the spring, and even with all the units being brought on in Central Ohio, we've blown away our absorption records for the month of February. I mean, it's just off the hook in terms of, you know, leasing and absorption and demand, which I think's continued. One of the real exciting things we see on the rental side, you're right, the older folks wanting to choose rental. We had a great disparity in rental rates between larger 2-bedroom units and smaller 1-bedrooms. We still are building roughly 80% of the units that we build are 1-bedroom because there's such a demand on the millennial side for 1-bedroom units. Smaller 1-bedroom units, well located, is absolutely still a sweet spot. But what's good is, like a project that Crawford Hoying did, we watched really closely, and we were looking to do a project in that Bridge Street area of Dublin, and we looked at the project on Lane Avenue that Crawford Hoying did, and it's staggering how strong their rents are in the larger 2-bedroom units, and it's because they've hit into a more mature renter that's renting by choice, and you know, with the, you know, Whole Foods across the street, the walkability. So yeah, we believe there is a market on the rental side for the well-located walkable 2-bedrooms, and it's pretty much an empty nester in a lot of cases driving those rents. It's really hard to convince the banks of that. So, you know, like when we were trying to do a project in downtown Dublin, you know, there's only one project that has sustained rents at that level, and they're rare. And so we need more of that. And I know Crawford Hoying's, they're doing great things there in Dublin. We really applaud all the efforts that have gone into that project, and we know it's going to be successful. But I think that's going to really open up on the rental side a lot of opportunities for us in new product types.
Brian Williams, University Area Commission. I'm wondering where transit factors into consumer preferences, site selection, and your marketing.
we're probably, pretty blessed that, first of all, as a city, we're incredibly, I know people don't like cars, but when you do need to get around, there's probably no better city and, very few that have the advantages that we have moving around in cars. But most of our areas, with the invention of Uber, one of the things that people didn't realize before Uber is in this town, you go to ask for a cab ride on a Thursday night, and you want to go from, you want to go from the short north. If you're, let's just say you're a 32-year-old and you had a few too many drinks, the cab drivers will need to take you. So they were, we continually heard about people wanting to rent a cab, and they're like, what? I'm not going to drive all the way out to Dublin and miss the next. Here's my card. If you still don't have a ride in 2 hours, call me, and then I'll, once I get out of the sweet spot. Uber's changed that, but still, the people, using Uber predominantly are for these short rides. So, I know everybody's, we keep looking at this mass transit thing and saying, we probably missed it. We didn't put mass transit in, and now that we're still thinking about putting it in, we keep saying, hold on, because, driverless cars, everybody thinks that's something way off in the future. When we were starting to look at and bringing in consultants on designing these garages, I mean, it is coming like a freight train. And can you imagine, the reason Google bought such an interest in Uber is, the idea is if they ever tap a driverless car, 60% of the cost of an Uber ride's flesh. And so I think as a nation, people are really starting to say, that's not so far-fetched anymore. Imagine a world where you have driverless cars and you can kind of whistle and your car can come find you. And boy, you talk about well-positioned, our streets are pretty darn good for that. So I think, the next wave's going to be, man, what's a world look like that? Because I think, we're really excited about, I think Audi just challenged any Formula One racing car driver to beat an unmanned car, and the driver lost by 7 seconds. So when you can, have an unmanned car drive around a racetrack at those speeds, how far off are we? So anyways, off track, sorry, speech.
Tim, what about MI? What do you look for in terms of the transportation network when you are selecting sites?
As Wag said, we're really pretty well blessed in this marketplace. I mean, I lived in Orlando for 3 years, getting around Mickey Mouse. I mean, as Wag said, it's all evolving, but this is a this community is very blessed as it relates to transit. We tend to be an in the Beltway builder for the most part, so it tends to work out just fine.
Yes, my name is John McKnight with Rife's Auto Body. And Mark, you really got my mind reeling here with trying to imagine a driverless taxi, how that whole process would work. My conversation with the driver, complaining he's going the wrong way. I don't know how that stuff would come together. But so my question is this. I'm a Clintonville homeowner. And right now, with the shortage of supply in housing, the housing prices in my neighborhood and a lot of neighborhoods are going up, super fast. The last time that I saw increase of housing prices as sharply as I've seen recently was in the years leading up to the last real estate bubble burst. Are we in any danger? And I'm not asking this to Mark, any of you. Are we in any danger of seeing something like that resulting out of the sharp upward trend that we're seeing right now? Thank you.
I'm sure we can both talk. I mean, it's not if, it's when, always in our business. So I'm very cautious about that's something that keeps me awake all the time. But, when we compare ourselves to our peer cities and when we look at, our wage rates, we feel like things are really expensive here. We're really still quite blessed. I mean, our rents for the most part are still below $2 a foot in our most well-located, compare that to, $230, $240 a foot, Nashville, $260 a foot, $4 a foot in Chicago. So it feels like it's expensive because I think we're looking at it through the lenses of our history versus what's going on in broadly across our peer cities. But no, I think we always got to guard against that. And to me, right now, with the world that we live in outside of our borders, that's, and I don't like to talk about 9/11, but let's be real, that something of that level could happen tomorrow, and it would shock us all. And so, I worry more right now, about what we're seeing, about those punches that we don't see coming, and manage the manageable, though. You can live in fear, or you can look forward and keep moving things on, and I think that's where our mindset is.
Tasha Booker with City Year Columbus. So about 40, 50 years ago, we saw the rise of the suburbs when people left inner city to go to the surrounding suburbs. Now we're seeing folks come back to the city with the whole rise of the HGTV generation of rehabbing homes. Is that a trend yet again, or is that something that's here to stay? You can look down Broad Street on the Near East Side and see the number of houses being purchased by, you call it yuppies or hipsters. Again, is that a trend or here to stay?
Well, I guess what a difference between a trend and it's always a trend. It's just how long it's going to last, and we suspect this has got I mean, I look at it through. Clearly we have a generation of hipsters that are very much focused on that type of living. But I'd say, if anything, having children that are the generation behind and watching things like where they're picking colleges, I mean, it seems to be even more urban oriented in the group behind that. So I think this has got legs, and it's, if it isn't 40 years, it could be 50, 60. But clearly this is I think most people believe this is here to stay for the foreseeable future.
We agree with that. No question.
I'm Bill Lafayette. I own Regionomics, and I probably ought to label this an extra credit question. But just wondering if any of you have thoughts on improving the supply of affordable housing for lower and middle income households.
I tell you what, it's an incredibly important thing to do for the foundation of a community, and they may not be our consumers right now, but we've since our inception for 40 years, we've been big supporters financially and otherwise to those causes. I think it's incredibly important to the fabric of a community, and so does our organization. And you're right, it's an incredibly thing to stay focused on. Here we are thinking about serving the $200,000 consumer. Well, there's others that need to be served as well.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look at an average price of $319,000 for a new home, there's a huge hole based on the demand that's out there. And the problem on our end is, where can we build it? And right now we're very limited in terms of where those price points can be built. And it's something, again, we need to go back to look at the work that Morpsey has done with Insight 2050 and look at the entire market and really study where the needs are and where the demand is. And there's a huge demand at that point.
And I do, what we've seen, it's probably too long a topic but I'm trying to condense this. So when we've been very involved in Weiland Park, and the things that we've seen there are really, really encouraging, in the sense that we really do have an opportunity to, people come back to the city and they want a diverse form of living. And so we are astonished about what's happened in Weiland Park. When we had the land at the right price and we designed the right product, we can deliver at a price point that's reasonable, and we did in Weiland Park here. This goes back in the last year. We're developing on the old Columbus Coated Fabric site right up against the train tracks, and we said, hey, look, it's time to build some models. We built like a model and 2 spec houses, expecting to maybe sell 3 or 4 houses this year. We sold every lot we had. It's and we're talking, and it's still, things are going in the right direction, and gosh, there's been an immense amount of effort in Weiland Park, but we're learning a lot there too. And what we're seeing is the same, in a lot of ways, the same profile buyer that we have everywhere else, we're having in Weiland Park. There's a tremendous amount of people that want a near urban experience that can't afford $300 a foot, and yet they're willing to go to areas that aren't perfectly reshaped yet. And so when you expand that and you look into Milo Grogan and Linden and south of town and the Hilltop, the West Side, there is a lot of stock that's really well located, that we believe now people are willing to take chances on. And we would never have expected that to be so robust and when things around it are still so visually challenging. So I really think that's where the opportunity is. We're still going to need a tremendous amount of help in the form of credits, but we need to be more, what's the word mobile, or more ability to react to these, because this is a special time. When people come back, the idea of living in a mixed income neighborhood is very appealing to a lot of people, and we can do a tremendous amount of good right now, but we don't have the tax credits, we don't have a lot of the things in place that allow us to be as nimble as we should be in buying up these houses. And then look at efforts like Children's Hospital and all the good things that are happening down on the South End. And really, if you look at Weiland Park, the reason that worked is the university, J.P. Morgan Chase, the Columbus Foundation, all got together to really move the needle. But I think there's some really good models out there now that can be quickly implemented into some of these other neighborhoods. And I know we're very much involved. We're involved with the nonprofit. Robert Caldwell's here in the room today, and we're really trying to expedite what we've learned in Weiland Park quickly in some of these neighborhoods to get them ready for this type of redevelopment. And that's where we can hit these price points and before things get hot, because as soon as it turns, the land values go up and you can't get there at a price point anymore.
I think we have time for one more question, or is that it? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
This is quick. If I pick one of my three, I'm Janine White, a member, and from AEP. I've heard several references to labor issues. What is the labor issue? Is it a supply issue, a skills issue, a retention? What is the issue with that, and how severe is it in terms of impacting these housing trends?
It's all the above. I was just actually speaking to a friend of mine who's an architect for a custom builder. We were talking about what his kid was doing, and he was thinking about going into architecture. And he said, he told his son, he said, "Son, learn a trade and put your shingle out in front, because there's a tremendous opportunity for our trades right now." It is all of the above, and recruiting good people and retaining them is difficult too. And it's not so much people that are wearing the MI shirts in my business anyways, as much as it is our plumbers, our electricians, our framers, our concrete people. It's a battle.
Yeah, that's the word for it. It's a battle to find qualified subs to continue to not just start work, but to finish it, and then to bid your next job, because it's really hard to build things now because they leave before things are finished, and you can't, you have no leverage. You're just like begging them to come back and price your next deal, and we all feel this lack. We're not keeping up with demand, but I can't tell you how tough it is to do right now.
There aren't young people going into the trades, and that's a problem that's been created over the last 40 years. And somehow we all need to work together to try to fix it. And on our end, and it's not just Columbus, Ohio, it's all over the nation, and it's actually all over the world. I heard a builder talking about it at our national convention, and he was having the same issue in Australia that everybody else was talking about.
Great. Well, thanks for a great forum, everybody, today. We encourage you to continue the conversation in the lobby with coffee and cookies. You can view and share today's forum and all of our forums on CTV Columbus Television, on WOSU and PBS affiliates statewide through the Ohio Channel, and anytime on CMC's website via YouTube. Let's thank our sponsors, Dispatch Media Group, American Electric Power, and WBNS 10 TV. And our speakers, Jim Hills, Tim Hall, Mark Wagenbrenner, and Jim Weicker. And thanks to all of you. We'll see you here soon.